and welcome to ABP Live. I have with me a very special guest, our former Indian Army Chief General N.M. Naravane. This is his new book, a military thriller, The Cantonment Conspiracy. Now, if you haven't read this book, you're really missing a pacey, racy, and a nail-biting thriller. Welcome to ABP Live, sir, and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Nayanima, and always a pleasure to speak to you and to meet you. Last time we met, you had presented me a copy of your book, and I'm happy that I've been able to return the favor by presenting a copy of my book to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, in my case, it's special. I have your signed copy. But now for our viewers, the first question that comes to anybody's mind that you are the first army chief since, independent India to have written a military thriller. How did this idea come to your mind? Why a thriller?
As far as military thrillers and a total work of fiction, definitely I'm possibly the first chief to have written a book like this. But General Padmanabhan had also written a work of fiction. It was set in it was a war story, a next round.
Right.
So that was a sort of, you can say, fiction. But yes, as a total hatke kind of a book,
Yes,
possibly
completely.
this is the first. So I thought we must try something new.
Okay.
I've been writing from time to time. During service, I've of course written and contributed to professional journals on military matters. I had also written a couple of short stories which were published many years ago. Of course, later on in service, I didn't have time to write short stories. So as a continuation of that, I thought let us also now explore one more avenue, and therefore this idea of a murder mystery came to mind.
Right. Well, that's fascinating, sir. But going into the book a little bit, while reading, one really feels like, he or she is traveling in a time capsule of sorts, right? I'll read out a portion where you're saying, your female protagonist, Renuka Khatri officer, she's from the 148th NDA course, the first course that had admitted women into the NDA. Also, they get commissioned into the army in June 2026. So are we to believe that this is going to be the reality soon, or are you trying to send a message that women now should be there in the position that they deserve within the Indian Army?
I don't think there's any subtle message of that kind. It is already a reality. Women were indeed admitted to the National Defence Academy 3 years ago. And only yesterday, the Times of India has carried the article that the IMA is gearing up for its first women cadets. Of course, the male cadets are called gentlemen cadets. Possibly they will be called gentlewomen cadets. So it is something which is actually happening. And after one year's training at the Indian Military Academy, the first ex-NDA women officer would indeed be in the army in May, June of 2026. So when I have set it in the future, it is with the knowledge that it is actually going to happen.
But then, that's great, because when somebody will probably read the book in 2026, they'll feel more, relevant to the time.
Quite right. And many of the cadets who are now under training, especially the women officers, I hope they get to read this book and they'll think that, oh, it's actually being written about us.
Right, absolutely.
In a manner of speaking.
Right. And you also portray women officers kind of in combat role in your book. Do you think that can also be a possibility?
Well, it's a work of fiction. You can write whatever you want to.
Thank you, sir. And also, I wanted to ask you also the fact that you named the regiments and, a Romeo and a Juliet. Why did you do that? And then you said that the joke was going around. Is it the case in reality too? We don't really know that.
It is actually so that the squadrons in the NDA are named alphabetically, and as per the standard phonetic script,
Right.
it is Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and so on.
Yes.
So we indeed have a Juliet squadron
Oh,
and a
okay.
Romeo
And
squadron.
a Romeo squadron.
It is
Okay.
just by chance
Mhm.
that when the infrastructure was being built, it was Romeo squadron which was chosen
Mhm.
to undergo those infrastructural changes which would be required to make women cadets feel safe.
Mm.
So it just happened by chance that the
Okay.
women were in Romeo
Mhm.
and the gents are of course scattered over all the
Mhm.
other squadrons including
Mhm.
Juliet squadron.
And so also to a layman, it might also trigger the thought that do this kind of incidents like a murder mystery or a conspiracy, these things, do they happen inside army cantonments? Because because of sensitivity of the nature, and we are also largely dealing with national security, these things don't come out in the media as such. But do these things happen, such incidents?
As I said, it's a work of fiction, and all fictionalized stories are set against some background,
Hmm.
whether it is set against industry background or we were speaking if you in a foreign country,
Right.
a spy story is
Hmm.
always there's a good country, there's a bad country. So everything has some context against which that story unfolds.
Hmm.
But the story is the main part, and the rest is only a background.
Correct. Okay. And we've also seen more often than not, sir, uh, some of the fictions written by our former, intel officers, and I'll specifically point towards Mr. Amar Bhushan. And readers believe, we've seen reviews when he writes a book, that although this is fiction, these things do happen in reality. But since you can't speak about it openly as a reality, you take the help of a fiction. Was that there in your case too, or maybe you really thought about this story for a very long time and then wanted to write it down?
I would not say that I've come across any particular incident of that nature
Hmm.
on which this story is based.
Hmm.
As I mentioned, it had to be made interesting.
Right. You
There,
made it very real.
there
You're
had to
talking
there had to
about the
be a
India-China skirmish
there
and
had to
many
be
other
a
things.
plot,
Mhm.
and it had to be set against a background. So that is how it's unfolded.
Okay. But how did this particular story come to your mind, sir? I mean, because, when we talk about an army officer, and that too of your stature, do you really get time in your life also? I mean, of course, now maybe you are probably able to read more books, but while in service, were you able to read many fictions like of John le Carré or, something like that?
Oh, yes, I've been very fond of reading
Mhm.
always. And you spoke about John le Carré, Tinker Tailor Soldier
Soldier
Spy.
Spy, yes.
George Smiley is his main character.
Right.
I think I've read all his books. I've read all the Arthur Haley's Airport, Hotel,
Mhm.
Wheels. So I've actually read whatever I could lay my hands on,
Mhm.
especially in my younger days. Of course, as you grow in service, you had less time to read, but now I'm catching up on my reading again. So yes, I have quite a lot of books under
But
my
thrillers
belt.
have always excited you,
Yes, I've been reading more fiction than
non-fiction.
non-fiction,
Oh.
especially in my younger
Mhm.
days.
Mhm.
Later on, I tried to make a rule that for every fiction book, I will read one non-fiction,
Okay.
just to keep myself abreast of
Right.
what is
Right.
happening in the world,
Mhm.
whether it is military history or any other non-fiction,
Mhm.
management, psychology,
Right.
because I believe that uh, when you have a wide range of books that you read,
Mhm.
whether fiction or non-fiction, you do pick up some small pieces of information or nuggets from
Hmm.
that,
Correct.
which
And it stays in your
stays in your
mind.
subconscious. And
Hmm.
sometimes when you're dealing with a situation,
Mhm.
that comes back to the surface, and because of that, you are able to handle that situation in a better manner.
Right.
Especially, say, books on psychology or books like "I'm okay, you're okay."
Mhm.
When you're dealing with some interpersonal
Right.
squabbles between two subordinates, or
Mhm.
then you suddenly remember that book that
Hmm.
possibly one chap is being
Correct.
overbearing and the other is not liking. So it comes back. So it's very important to read, read a lot and a wide range, and that I think contributes
Right.
to your workplace efficiency. And there have been studies to show that people who have done well in their respective careers, not just the military or government, have read up to about a dozen books a year, which are apart from their job.
Okay.
So if I read a military manual, that is not reading. That I have to read that.
That is part of the
Part
job.
of the job. But apart from your job specific reading, people who have done well, because it is from there that they get the ideas
Right.
of how to improve their respective organizations.
Absolutely. Sir, I'll read out a small portion from your book. And this has sort of fascinated me how you described this Sikh Rifles Regimental Center Officers Mess called the Retreat. And we are sitting in that kind of an army mess here as well. The way you've described the story behind the retreat and, how you have certain precious statues there and all of that. Is it a real, the retreat story is the real, or that's also you have sort of, fictionalized?
Well, the description of the mess.
Because you really feel sitting inside an officer's mess and, army mess.
So definitely the description of the mess is what is common or what is expected or what would you would see in almost every officer mess across the country. The specific name that they have taken, the retreat, that have borrowed from some other building which I had seen in yet another location.
Right.
So I have sort of merged the two events together,
Yeah,
or the
because
two inputs together to make it so.
Very interesting. I mean, this line, the building originally belonged to a British officer when British troops had been garrisoned at Fatehpuri. The officer had run up a large number of debts to clear which he had sold the property to a local businessman who had bought it as a place for his ailing wife, and hence the name, the retreat. Fascinating story.
That part is actually a true story.
Okay, yes.
But as I said, it is not not of any particular officer mess, but of another civilian building. So I am not revealing
where is it.
Where it is, and let people find out. And I'm sure people who belong to that city, when they read this part, will immediately recognize the place that I'm talking about.
Sir, also when you write a murder mystery compared to other kind of fiction, it is always difficult. What I have heard from other authors is the fact that how do you close that particular case, right? How do you sort of, and because the characters spread out, and then to go after each and every character and then finding out the culprit, and also giving a logic behind and the motive, as to why that character committed the crime. Do you think that is more difficult than writing just a normal fiction? Was it challenging for you as well? How to bring it to that end, which will be also very fascinating and absolutely nail-biting here.
So definitely it's a very challenging process. And when I started writing it, I was not sure who's the culprit going to be.
Going to be, exactly.
So a little bit changed as I started writing, and as more ideas kept coming in, then you had to make it little more interesting. There had to be a couple of red herrings thrown in. So all these iterations and changes happened during the writing of the book. It's not that A to Z the plot was totally crystal clear as you started writing.
Okay. And so if I can ask you, after you've written this, do you think this will inspire other, probably, the army chiefs who will be, retiring soon, or maybe, whoever, to write more murder mysteries? You probably have shown the way that even an army chief can write a thriller.
No, I
He
will
doesn't
not,
always have to write on heavyweight issues, right?
I may not always. I will not restrict it to senior leadership of the army, but many of my batchmates have written works of fiction,
Right.
and which have also done very well. In fact, they have even written a series of books
Right.
with the same set of characters. So maybe I did draw a little inspiration from my batchmates also, that if they can write, then so can I. And we should not always see things from the perspective of seniority or ranks,
Right.
but more out of do you have that literary capacity in you to attempt,
Absolutely. And the love for writing.
a love for writing, and also to take that chance that let's try out something new. Why
Right.
always go down
Absolutely.
that beaten path? As I said, I've always been writing for military journals,
Correct.
whether it is the infantry school or the USI journal. So that would possibly be
But this is more
something
refreshing, I'm
more,
sure.
more refreshing and totally different, which makes you think much more.
Right. So, although this is your first work of fiction, you've already written your autobiography, The Four Stars of Destiny, which, all of us were eagerly waiting for. What's happening to that? Is that going to come out soon?
Well, that book, as you're aware, is under review by the MOD, since it might contain certain aspects which require deliberation by not only the MOD but maybe other ministries as well.
Okay.
So that process is on, and the publisher and the MOD are in constant touch with each other.
Okay, that's wonderful. So we look forward to that as well. And sir, my last question, are we going to expect and see more thrillers from you, or you plan to convert this book now into a movie, because it's going to be a fascinating super hit movie?
Well, I can't say about the movie part, but I definitely enjoyed writing the book, and as I kept my mind ticking, and the plot and subplots had to be brought together. There couldn't be any loose ends, though I feel there are a few loose ends.
Oh no, I don't think so at all.
So it will all depend now what is the response to the book and the feedback which I get. It is very early days yet. The books have not reached the readers. It's only when that happens. And
But it's available online.
it's available online.
Sure.
It's there on Amazon. Pre-orders are open, and it has done, I think, reasonably well. If the Amazon bestseller, not bestseller, but the list of books on Amazon is to go by. So I think some sales have happened, but the actual feedback will only be known once a large number of people have read the book. And if that is an enthusiastic response, then yes, why not? As
Sure.
Karan Thapar also mentioned, there could be a series of Renuka Khatri murder mysteries.
And also, sir, since you mentioned that, do you think after this, many of the young officers in the army probably will also be inclined to write more, and do you think this can also inspire them?
Well,
Although I don't think how much time they get to write a book.
At the junior levels, they may not get so much time to write,
Right.
but definitely through the qualities that I have put in the various characters, not just Renuka and Rohit, but even the adjutant, the commandant.
Right.
So I think those are qualities which I have put consciously. So in an indirect manner, trying to show that these are the qualities that need to be emulated,
Right.
not only by officers in the army, but the population at large, that how duty and honor and how the balance between them has to be maintained. But at the end of the day, seva parmo dharma.
Right. And also the fact that you don't always have to write on, let's say, heavyweight, issues. You can also go into
And
light-hearted.
yes, not only always write heavyweight, and the same message can also be conveyed through different medium.
Absolutely.
And one of them is through works of fiction.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. So once again, readers, this is the Cantonment Conspiracy by our former Indian Army Chief General M.M. Naravane. You can pick up the book in Amazon. It's going to hit the bookstores by next month. So go read this and understand how a thriller can be written. Thank you very much for watching. For ABP Live, this is Nayanima Basu. On camera, Ayan Hussain.